What's going on, everybody? This is Jeff Wood, living in Arizona, and today we're going to make a little bit off the subject video here. It's about the COVID-19, also known as the coronavirus. So, first of all, I'm not a doctor. I don't claim to be a doctor. All I'm going to do is tell you about my experience in late January when I was in Singapore, when the news started, or basically the cases started to really spike around about January 23rd. And I'm going to tell you what happened in that city when the events started to really escalate. And this hopefully is designed to prepare you for a potential outbreak, something we haven't really seen in America. You know, you hear about Ebola and you hear about SARS and MERS and all that, but is Phoenix really ready for that? And I did a little bit of research, and I'm also going to tell you about my experience to give you guys some things to consider should this continue to escalate into something bigger and beyond, what we all are basically your worst nightmare happening here in America. You know, besides war, pandemics or viruses or disease can really decimate and destroy communities, markets, and societies. So, just to start out, when I was in Singapore around about January 23rd, cases started spiking all across Asia. And immediately, the two things that you needed, that you were being told you needed, you could not find anywhere overnight. Those were hand sanitizer. So I recommend, if you get a chance, stock up on these suckers, because this is the first thing they say is wash your hands and have face masks. So those were two things that were gone overnight. The town, the city, a big city like Singapore was sold out. You couldn't find them anywhere, not in the airport, not in any of the convenience stores, the 7-Elevens or anything. So first thing I did when I got back was I ordered on Amazon some really expensive, well, they're really expensive because they're a lot more than I would ever expect to pay for a face mask, and some hand sanitizers. So those are two things right off the bat that I can tell you you're going to want if this thing starts escalating for yourself and for your family, because when you're in public places, you know, you touch doorknobs and handles and all these different things. Carrying this around in a purse or in a fanny pack or in something is going to be really useful to killing bacteria. In fact, if I touch anything with my hand and I accidentally touch my hand, I'll put a little bit of this on my hand, take it from someone who travels a lot and is around a lot of these diseases in Asia where, you know, they break out. I'll just go like this around my nose, and I'll like try to, you know, I just do that, get it all over my face, because I don't know if I've accidentally just touched something that could get me sick. And you guys might be laughing right now saying, oh, geez, Jeff, you're really over exaggerating. This is not going to happen. Well, I watched this explode in Asia when I was there. Everyone was wearing a mask, literally. And it happened overnight. It went from no one wearing a mask to within like the next day, mask everywhere. And I'm saying this could happen in Phoenix, especially as these global cases start rising and keep rising. Okay, so Phoenix in particular, things to consider about that, especially in the hot season. If we get to a point where panic starts to set into society, Phoenix being a hot place, your air conditioner, worst case scenarios, what are you going to do to keep your house cool during a worst case scenario if the grid fails? I see you guys, JJ, Sam, thanks for all the comments. I'll read them. Did you notice people not covering their mouths there? Yes. And this is a true story. It's not an embellishment of the truth. There's people over there that will sneeze, cough, and you will see particulates flying out of their mouth when they're sick and they don't cover their mouth. This is probably the same thing that will happen in America. People will get sick. They don't cover their mouth. I mean, they don't even go like this. Like, you know how they say when you sneeze, you're not supposed to sneeze in your hand. You're supposed to sneeze into your shirt. But people sometimes they don't even cover their mouths, and you see the particulates flying out of your mouth. That's how this disease spreads. And so even when I would get on the airplane, first thing I would do is use my handy dandy hand sanitizer, and I would scrub down the sides of the thing, because that's where people have their hands last. They say the incubation period is about 14 days, but I've heard it's as long as 21 days. Just so you know, it's coronavirus. It's called novel coronavirus, novel meaning new, coronavirus being from animals. So just so you know about the name, novel is new coronavirus. That's basically the translation. So new virus from animals, if we were to directly translate that. And they're saying it came from a seafood market in Wuhan, China, okay, that also sold wild animals, and it's likely to have come from bats or rats, but don't quote me on that. I don't know for a fact, but if you know anything about the bubonic plague came from China and it decimated Europe, 2/3 of the population, and it came from rats from China, or it came from China from seafaring vessels. So keep that in mind. I mean, you guys might be laughing at this video being like, why is this dude making a video about this? But I'm saying, like, you got to be ready. And there's actually a website called ready.gov that tells you how to prepare for this, because there's even people saying it's not a matter of if this will ever happen. It's just a matter of when, and you need to be prepared. And what they're recommending on this website is store a 2-week supply of water and food. And if there was ever a time to be prepared like this, right now, okay? Periodically check your regular prescription drugs to ensure continuous supply in your home. So if you're one of those people who relies heavily on prescription pills during a time where there's a potential pandemic outbreak, you might want to have a little bit of extra on hand just in case. Have a safety kit on hand also. That might mean having more juice that has electrolytes and things to keep your body hydrated, because viruses or flus like this, when they get in your body, they dehydrate you. And you're going to want to have cough medicines, cold medicines, fluids, and electrolytes and vitamins around to keep your, like, right now is a really good time to take those vitamins to ramp up your immune system. It really is. You're going to want to know if you want to make sure if you have kids that your kids, if they're going to school, there might be a time where you might say it's too risky to send your kids to school. I'm not trying to scare anyone. That's not the point of the video. This is a contingency in the event that this thing continues to escalate, and it's not going away. It's, that's something to keep in mind. If you notice someone sick, avoid contact with them. It's not, you don't go like this and be rude to them, but I'm just saying, or if you are sick, try to stay home, because there's people who got this virus. The best thing that they could do is almost just isolate themselves to their home so they don't spread it, but also so they're not around other people who are sick with coronavirus, because that kind of compounds it. I mean, you've seen the doctors who have passed away from treating people who had coronavirus. We talked about covering your mouth, washing your hands, which is what I recommended this. And I'm telling you, if you think this is going to be in demand, or if you think this is going to be in stores, these hand sanitizers, if and when this thing breaks out, you're completely tripping out, because you'll wake up one day and every single one of these will be sold out at every store. If it's anything like what happened in Asia, what I saw in Asia, masks and hand sanitizers. I cannot stress that enough. You're going to wish you had that if you don't already. And by the way, I have no economic incentive to sell masks or this hand sanitizer. But like I said, right now is a really good time to boost your immunity, boost your immune system, because the people who are actually passing away, it is about a 2 to 3% mortality rate. So 2 to 3% of the people who actually contract this pass away. But those are people with, lower than normal healthy immune systems. So they have compromised immune systems. Let's see here. Brian says, I'm scared. No, it's not about being scared here. And thank you to the 14 people who crushed up the likes to get this out there. You got any mask and hand sand? I do have I did order some masks. There's actually the mask that you're supposed to order. Let me see if I can get it. So I've used a regular mask, but it's called a mask N95. I actually ordered 3 of those. And if you got more people in your house, the problem was it was $29. I had to order it on Amazon. They don't have them here. I mean, you could probably go to Home Depot and still score some masks. But like I said, if this thing escalates, it's gonna move fast. A lot of things are gonna sell out, including some of the most important things like medicines and whatnot. So it's probably a good time to be ahead of the curve, because if you see a curve coming, you don't want to get caught, at the end of the curve, a day late and a dollar short. You don't want to be one of those people, especially if you want to be in a survival situation. And look, I'm not a doomsday guy, a doom and gloomer. All I'm trying to do is say, hey guys, just be prepared, okay? Because I'm starting to think about this stuff. And actually, here's some other things to consider. Most of the stuff that's manufactured, that's delivered here, comes from China, right? So this is going to affect the economy and the market if it continues to escalate. It's already affected travel. I work in travel. I've seen it already affect travel. People don't want to go on cruise ships anymore. The airline industry has seen like a 10 to 15% drop. Several airlines in Asia have already laid off people. That's just the beginning of something that could get even more intense. So as one industry starts to slow down, other layoffs begin to happen. And as those layoffs begin to happen, that starts to affect the economy. Look at the Dow Jones Industrial the last 2 days. The market is down 2 days in a row. China's markets are down, but it could get to a point where if China's outbreak continues to spread, we might not even be able to import from China. Okay. And then it gets to the point where, what about the food handlers? Do the food handlers have come in contact with coronavirus, and they're preparing your food, and there you are at your house? You've been taking all the necessary steps, doing all this, using your hand sanitizers, but you didn't even think twice that your butcher might be touching your steak or your salad, or the salad. And next thing you know, it's like, wow, you got it from eating a salad that you got at Chompy's or Subway or Safeway or who knows where. I mean, you got to think that deep about this kind of stuff, right? So in that case, canned foods, stuff that was prepared before the virus outbreak, you might have to consider that. And like I said, I know it's kind of scary to hear this. I know you guys are thinking to yourself, oh, geez, this is scary. It's no one wants to be scared. It's saying be prepared. It's like, I don't like wearing a seatbelt, but I got to wear a seatbelt, right? And like I was going into, like I was saying before about the spread, the air conditioning in the summertime. So if it happened in the summertime, and let's just say some of the grid started failing, layoffs started happening, like fear across the valley started happening, what are you going to do to keep your house cool if some of the grid started failing, or if you didn't have money, so how would you cool your house in the heat of the summer? Now, one thing that has been said is that typically these flus or these pandemics or walking pneumonia or pneumonia type symptoms, they kind of burn out of the system with the heat. So that's why you have flu seasons usually in the winter, because that's a breeding time for the disease. But, I don't know. It's just, you got to think about, like, what if the grid failed? What if you couldn't get groceries? What if you couldn't get prescription pills? What if you couldn't get your medicines? What if everything was sold out that you really needed? And do you even want to be sending your kids to school where they could be exposed to 29 other students who are potentially exposed to it also? It's really a real hot button. It's something that none of us want. I mean, it's going to definitely, it's at this point, in my opinion, it is threatening the economy, which means that as it starts to threaten the economy, layoffs start happening, people start defaulting on their bills, and then the house of cards comes toppling down. Jim Dandy says you'd be screwed in Arizona with no electricity. You'd get heat stroke if you're in your own home. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how to keep your house cool in the heat. I mean, it's pretty crazy. Joe Doe says, well, Chicknut isn't totally closing exits. Lady got to France and spread it. She was bragging she got out of that house. They got caught, tested, and came back positive. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that we really have it here in Phoenix yet. Thanks to the 22 people who pushed up the like button to get the video out there. We already have 88 people watching. It's late night. But I felt like I needed to make this video because, as someone who watched how overnight a city can go into pandemonium and go into fear, literally overnight, something that it's like the morning on September 11th when you woke up and you were like, whoa, the Twin Towers are on fire. Oh my gosh, they're toppling down. Remember that feeling? That was like what it was like when I was in Singapore when the Wuhan virus started to really start taking off. That's why I left. I went to Australia. I was like, I got to get out of here because I could see how they were going to start canceling flights, doing 14-day quarantines and all that. And I was like, wow, if that happened in America, I don't think Americans are ready for that, because we've had it pretty good for a long time. But it was kind of like one of those September 11th type reminders, like things can change like that. And, that's why I'm saying, get your hand sanitizers, get your masks, start thinking about contingencies of things that you would do if things really got crazy, because sometimes it's not even you who's unprepared. It's the public around you who's panicking. And when panic starts to happen and they start getting laid off and stuff like that, that's when threats can start to also come into your house. And that's where a lot of you Second Amendment type people are like, hey, that's why I need my Second Amendment, because I need to be able to protect my family. If, you know, some people joke around and they call it the zombie apocalypse, but just let's call it what it is. You know, things start failing in our society. People get desperate. You want to be able to protect yourself. And at the end of the day, this is not a fear video. This is getting you thinking. If anything, I'm the guy who's lighting a fire under your butt right now, saying, hey, start thinking about this stuff. Because if it comes to Phoenix, you got to start thinking about it exclusively to Phoenix. And so that's why I said hand sanitizer, the mask, that's a start, canned foods, and water on supply with medicines. Those are some things you can do right now. Just have a little bit extra on supply, maybe 1 to 2 weeks. I'm not saying this is ever going to happen. It could just fizzle out like SARS did or Ebola. It could just fizzle out, or swine flu. Remember that one? But what if it doesn't? So this is one of those moments where you got to kind of go from, you know, level 1 to, it's like, okay, we're on level 2. You know, it's like we're on yellow alert right now. If we get to orange and then we get to red, then it's high alert, right? So it's kind of the way I'm looking at it. Living in Arizona, branded face mask and sanitizer I would buy. Yeah, but then I'd be profiting off of, you know, whatchamacallit, I guess I could donate, right? But then I'd be profiting off of bad times. I don't really want that money. 395. Hey, what's up, Jeff? Got a job offer today. 2 different hospitals, Banner and Abrazo Heart Hospital, closing escrow 26 March. We'll be moving to Surprise from Cali. Thanks for all the info. Well, that's good. That's good. And you're working at a hospital. I mean, that's a tough industry to be working in, especially if this thing turns into a pandemic. And just in case you guys didn't know, the difference between an endemic or a pandemic and an endemic is epidemics. Am I saying it right? Epidemic is something that is regional. So it's isolated to a regional. Once it goes global, it becomes a pandemic. So a global pandemic versus an epidemic. Right now, it's in mostly Asia, but it's spreading. Right now, Italy is getting hit, and Italy is really far away. Italy has actually kind of escalated things. Even Croatia is starting to, which is right across the waterway. I think the Aegean, is that what it is? So it's escalating, and that's why we're making this video. Anyways, guys, thanks to 103 people watching and the 37 people who crushed up the likes. Let's just hope this thing goes away, doesn't become anything serious, because I think it can really affect our economy if it keeps going the way it is, because I'm already starting to see layoffs. We just watched 2 days of the stock market get hit, and that could be a snowball effect that goes down fast. And when it rains, it pours, as we all know. So, and that's not even including the health effects. That's just talking about the effects to the economy. So just be prepared. Wish you guys all the best, and we'll see you guys on the next one. This is not a fear mongering video though, so don't live in fear just yet. Just be prepared.